Warning, this episode contains explicit language, horrible flashbacks, culty vibes, and as always, childhood trauma. Also, there'll be spoilers for Part 3, Chapters 1 through 12 of Murtagh, the fifth novel in the World of Eragon by Christopher Paolini. Listen at your own risk.
Is this a podcast, or is this just fantasy? We're just two nerds and we love our fantasy. So join us if you want to nerd out. Time to start the podcast and see. Anyway, here's the show.
Hello, readers. I'm Dane Patterson, the host, who, like our boy Murtagh, can also be pushed into doing risky and dangerous activities if someone tells me it's a challenge or questions my courage. And I feel like reading about Murtagh is making me really reflect on some of my most, really bad qualities, Jacqui.
Oh, no. I'm Jacqui Lanier, and is this a podcast or is this just fantasy? The podcast where we may not know when it's time to get the fuck out of a party, but I don't really have a but for that, Dane. I really am the last person overstaying her welcome at the hang. That, unfortunately, is my lot in life.
So you're reflecting on your bad qualities, too, huh?
Sadly, yes. Something about this book, I can't quite pinpoint what it is.
Well, if you'd like to support us sad boys on Patreon, like Luca W., a gentleman and a scholar,
yes,
if I do say so myself, then there's a link in the show notes. And if you can or just don't want to, we totally understand. It just asks that you please rate us on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. Seriously, Luca, you're awesome. Thank you so much. We're happy to have you in the book club, dude.
Yes, thank you, Luca. And if you are here with us in this new era book and you have yet to see our cool website, what are you doing? You can visit us at isthisjustfantasypod.com or check out our cool Murtagh memes on social media. We are on TikTok at isthisjustfantasypod and on Instagram at justfantasypod.
With all the cool kids.
With all the cool fellow kids on the net. So I know I really tested your goodwill last time with this recap, but I'm back this week and I solemnly swear in the ancient language that there will be no bad fish puns. And I swear this, Dane, in the recap of the section that actually covered the Mukma incident. So that's growth from me, I think.
I can't wait till we wade into this.
Stop it. Stop it. Don't
I didn't
tempt
promise
me.
anything.
God damn it. I'm all business today. Just remember that. I'm trying. So we kicked off our side quest with Murtagh and Thorn planning their infiltration of Gilead. Thorn is trying his damnedest to play wingman for Murtagh, but coffee shop hipster can't have casual sex when he's embroiled in a situationship with his ruthless leader.
A shame for all of us.
I know, really a shame. Once inside the bustling post-war metropolis, Murtagh really shows us his noble dandy side, bribing a page boy and spotting a shitty old noble acquaintance. The plan goes to shit almost immediately when a leather daddy spirits him away to meet with a werecat named Carabelle, who offers to spill the tea on the smoldering rock and bird amulet in exchange for Murtagh's help solving a string of mysterious kitten nappings. She has a truly harebrained D&D-ass plan of her own for Murtagh and Thorn. Just your classic grave-robbing, monster-slaying, police force infiltrating detective job. You've seen one, you've seen them all. Except I guess here our emo Nancy Drew is forced to confront a different core wound with every step, from desecrating the tomb of the legends he murdered to fishing with the bones of the army he left for dead to becoming an oathbreaker yet again to a company of comrades. It's a real doozy for Murtagh.
Simple 3 days.
Makes a lot of sense he's emo. Makes a lot of sense we're reflecting on the bad things about ourselves in this time. But something deeper than the trauma work is at play in Gilead when we go spelunking through Captain Wren's basement, encountering a dream suite of a magical treasure trove / enchanted garden before finding Silna and facing down a 1-2 punch of a weenie magician and our work bestie to have to escape. So having secured the deets from Carabelle on the shadowy organization he needs to go hunt down in the remote north, Murtagh almost makes it out of the city with wounds that are mostly just emotional. But alas, not this day. He is waylaid by Lyrith to trade insults and political hot takes over a classic rich boy happy hour, I think is kind of the vibe I got.
Sounds like a real, what is it? These tech bros. It's a tech pro meeting is what that
Yes,
is.
definitely a tech pro happy hour. But when Murtagh refuses to help Lyrith depose High Queen President, this asshole drops our boy in a crazy magic prison box. He only narrowly escapes when Thorn rolls in to just lay absolute waste to an entire city block, which does make their road trip out of town just a bit tense, just a little tough. They spend their travel days brooding and doing immersion therapy, but no more catastrophic panic attacks happen before they reach their destination, so I'm counting that as wrapping up on a win. That's what I can take. What do you think they're going to find in this small little, like, quaint mountain village, Dane?
You know, I'm sure it's going to be all uphill from here. I think it's all going to be good. I think he's going to find people that really get him.
You
that
think
they're
so?
Hang out, really get to know each other. He's going to unpack some of the trauma inside of him.
That feels so good.
Yeah,
That
I'm really
can't-
excited
That
for this
can't be a
turn of
journey
story.
for Murtagh.
Well, you know, this part of the section does bring up a question I have for you, Jax.
Yes?
Is there any time in your life that you came across a situation where you're like, yeah, this is probably a cult? Is there any time?
I mean, not so famously, a thing people probably forget about me
Yeah.
almost all of the time. I was in a sorority in college.
Ah.
That just straight up was
I
a
always
cult.
forget it.
We wore robes once a month and like it was called ritual. Like you would go to ritual once a month.
Okay, that's wild.
Yeah, I was in a cult for 4 years.
Fantastic.
All my best friends from college are from that time in my life. Maybe we're trauma bonded. Maybe
Oh,
we're
no.
born with it. Maybe it's a trauma bond. No, actually, my sorority was lovely. We had,
I have to say this because it's a cult.
I know. This is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Pretty bad. I think because
walking it back. We're all joking, right?
Sorry, girls. I didn't mean to out you like that. No, I just like pray. I'm so interested still to this day in like really terrible, like gruesomely interested, morbidly interested in like hazing stories just because that was so not my life. I felt adjacent to it, but like never in it myself. And then the like ritual that we did was just like, hey, don't be a dick. It was like a
Wow.
long way to like work around like, hey, be nice to people, be kind to people, try to help people. And I was like, okay, I guess.
So you're saying sororities are good?
Mine, I liked mine. My experience in my sorority was good for me, and the friends that I have from my sorority are top notch, 10 out of 10.
I think I've met a few of them.
Yeah, you
Very
absolutely
nice.
have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind, wonderful, fun women.
Great people.
Yeah, love them.
I have to say that. That hurt me otherwise.
That's correct.
And one of the rituals.
Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah.
It was like something that just was so background noise at the time that it's only
Fantastic.
later that I'm like, that was fucking
You-
crazy.
You know what I think about though? I like to think I was going to bring up something about like a couples retreat. Me and Dylan.
Oh,
went
yeah,
on.
you are in a cult.
Yeah, well, no, it really changed us.
It doesn't have to be nefarious just
Yes,
because it's a cult.
That's true. But what I do think about more that you and me were both in is we were at the same dance studio, and talk about a cult.
That was one of my first thoughts
Yes.
too, but it's so hard to like really know what
It had all the markers.
it did. Yeah, charismatic leader.
There was a charismatic leader. There was like a strict hierarchy.
Yes, a
There-
very insular community with its own like jargon and like
Yes.
rituals and routines.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were punished strongly if you were outside the bounds of social dynamics created therein.
Yes, and it definitely like I think we talk about this a lot in adulthood, like thinking back on how we must have looked when we would go out, like we'd go to competitions and travel and stuff, and we'd be at just like regular hotels, regular like
Yeah.
old spaghetti factories
Yes.
in with the Gen Pop, and we looked crazy. We were like out having food fights in public, thinking that was normal because like everybody did it. We were just like a raucous, like too much energy. I think maybe theater kids have a little bit of this energy
that vibe
too.
This is a real story. When me and Jackie and her sister, who was my dance partner, went to New Orleans for
God.
the Junior Olympics, we like went through a hotel in places we were not supposed to go.
We were like late night sneaking through the like main like catering kitchen for this like swanky hotel.
Like laying on tables and doing crazy shit while dressed. I had no shirt on, but I was wearing a pinstripe suit where all the pins were rhinestones.
We were wearing the dance costumes. Yeah.
And I was wearing aviator glasses with
You know-
like my tween chest hanging out.
And we had our like tiny digital camera out to like take pictures because it was the early aughts.
Yes. This is a thing we did.
Yeah. You know what's weird is I feel that's one of the stories I feel the least bad about just because it was so empty. We were not like actively disrupting anybody like we were. So true. But like, I feel like when we were out with the big group, all I can feel is like so much secondhand mortification for like those kids who were just being wild out in public. I'm pretty sure we cleared out more than a few restaurants by just being psychotic.
I once went to a hotel where I got like, not arrested by the security, but like I was put in a room in a hotel where like they were like, you're gonna stay here.
You went to hotel jail
because it was a square. It was like 4 buildings in a square, and I thought it would be fun, and no one stopped me to like jump from roof to roof like Spider-Man.
Oh my God.
And like run around in dance clothes.
I wasn't there for that.
And no one. Your mom was there. She helped me. She broke me out of Gen Pop.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, she did not help you run around on rooftops.
No,
but she would break you out
she
of
was
hotel
very
prison.
disappointed
I bet she was.
in me, and I'm sorry, Laura.
We're still sorry, Laura.
Well, on that note, in our cults that we've been a part of,
Weird.
yeah.
We each have 2 in the docket. That's crazy.
Yeah, and we didn't learn our lesson from the first one.
Yeah, if you're listening, I hope this is a normal amount of cult stories and not like there's something wrong with us.
Everyone's been in a little bit of a cult.
Hard to know.
Cult
Hard to know.
adjacent. We're Americans, right?
Yeah.
It's like, isn't that what they say to us? We're like very primed as a culture to be in cults.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of other countries talk about like the
prevalence of cults here. Is
Yeah.
that a thing? Am I making this up?
No, I think a lot of it has to do with like the Pledge of Allegiance in schools. Like people see that kind of indoctrination of kids every single morning as something just like very dystopian about this country. And it's weird because I never thought about it
At
once growing up.
Well, it's getting worse. Now they'll have 10 commandments in all of the classes in Louisiana. But on that note,
we're going to have to cut that.
no, keep it in. We're going to move on to chapters 1 through 3. We start this week right where we left off. Thorn and Murtagh are flying towards the back of a valley as the temperatures rise and the smell of sulfur grows. Ooh. Good sign. They see dark gray stone structures with domed roofs, which look unlike any other building Murtagh has seen in Alagasia, which piqued my interest right away.
Yeah.
And our emo boys decide to do a quick huddle up before going straight to Michelle's front door.
Smart.
As they talk, they figure magic or wealth, or both, must be at work to get these buildings built way up in the mountains up here.
Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's generational wealth.
Exactly.
Got it.
But they don't go into too much depth on that because Murtagh decides it's time to enter with some shock and awe.
Ooh.
And every time I think he's gonna make a bad choice, he reminds me how fucking metal he is, you know? And I'm back in.
Of course you are.
He's hilarious.
I did like this.
Yeah.
I'm with you on this.
Yes.
I was like, fuck yeah.
I was like, do it, dude. Then Murtagh goes on to have a fantastic first thought, just to like put like bumpers on that, thinking that talking with Michelle first before potentially killing her is probably the better idea. And remember, he was just making fun of Eragon for not being good at politics or warfare. Yeah.
And he had to like really sit down and be like, maybe I shouldn't just do a murder.
Maybe we don't just kill her. Is that crazy? Next, they discuss being careful enough to at least get some like good intel.
Okay.
Great jump. And with that, they decide they have a 10 out of 10 no-nose plan to like go out.
That's it?
Yep. I laughed out loud because their plan is, everybody, be careful and be armed.
Sold.
Great. Maybe kill Michelle.
Okay.
Maybe talk to her.
Okay.
See what happens. Feel the vibes. Take Thorn in from the jump to be more impressive and intimidating.
Smart.
Try to get them numbers on how many people actually live here.
Wow.
And have their wards on.
Whoa.
And that's it.
Good. That's it.
It's pretty loose.
I mean, it's
especially for someone talking so much shit.
Yes. It's a sad state of affairs when just like not leaving your dragon behind is something that I looked at as like, good, he's growing, he's learning.
Yeah.
Like, look at what just happened to him 2 times in a row.
Well, that's why I listed them out, because when you're reading it, you're like, yeah, they're talking through it. But really, when you break it down, not much is going on here. They're like, we're just going to go in, essentially.
We're going to go in there, be scary, maybe do a murder,
maybe don't. Maybe don't. Anyway, after doing a quick fit check in his like fancy armor,
right?
Murtagh notes that his helm has a golden circlet, like a crown on the top of it.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a really cruel joke from Gal.
That's right.
We learn more about their relationship, and I love all that we get from Gal and him, I gotta say, because we just didn't know that much.
Yes.
And it turns out in public, Gal treated him like a son who would usher in a new age of dragon riders. But given how we know actually treated him. The crown on his helmet is a joke at Murtagh's expense. So everyone else is like, yay, he's the prodigal son.
Yeah.
But
Murtagh has to live with the knowledge that this dude actually just despises him. He's never going to step down. Murtagh's never going to be like the next.
Yeah.
He's not in line for anything, you know?
And how many people knew that like Murtagh was already enslaved to this guy through like bonds and magic and names and stuff.
Really
so
sad.
Murtagh has to eat a lot of shit even while putting this on.
Yeah.
You know, again. But no time to dwell on that.
Also, like, could you not have just gotten a new...
Get a new helmet,
Get a new hat, bud. You don't have
weird.
to wear the sad hat.
Well, I think he kind of likes it, though, because I imagine it's beautiful, right?
Well, yeah, and he is a dandy.
Yeah.
He's like, well, it's very well made. It's well crafted.
It's good craftsmanship.
Lasts a lifetime, you know?
Anyway, no
they don't
time.
make them like they used to. Sorry.
That's so funny. Well, no time for trauma flashbacks. Thorn lands in front of the settlement, roaring away.
Yes.
Grade-robed citizens run into their homes. Bells toll. Murtagh raises his sword. It's all very dramatic.
Yeah.
Murtagh yells out who he is and that he's there for Michelle. And while he waits, he notices that the people that are running away, well, they're moving.
Yeah.
They're not scared enough, which is weird.
That's a thought only somebody bonded to a dragon's going to have.
Yeah, he's like this. They're not screaming quite loud enough.
Yes.
You know? Then a man with a goatee, widow's peak, pockmarked face, heavy brow, high cheekbones, and stripes of purple on his gray robes appears. He just sounds gross.
Yes, he does.
Murtagh mentions that his ancestry's hard to place, and then when he speaks, he sounds like an Urkel. And from the audiobook, by the way, it is an Urkel voice. It's the same Urkel voice that was used for Nargaj.
This is one I read on the page, not audiobook. So also sorry for all the mispronunciations I'm doing, because this is just my make-em-ups in my head.
It's funny because I do listen to the audiobooks, and you always pronounce them better than me. So it says a lot about us. He also has oversized hands, really long arms. I think maybe half Urkel or like something new completely. I don't know what this is.
You know what's weird is the really long arms sounded familiar to the like projection of Guntera that appeared in, because that didn't necessarily look to Eragon like a dwarf, right?
Yeah. Is he proto-dwarf?
I don't know. There's something going on here. My first read on this was just like archaic writ large, like
old.
Yes, old timey, like out of use
like
language.
A Neanderthal?
A little bit, yeah. Like
Okay.
the turns of phrase and stuff. I think even that. Spoiler alert, we're getting there in this episode, but like even that Bashel will use, like just the way Murtagh thinks about them is like out of date and archaic. I'm like, this is definitely something here is very old.
He's like, this. All your clothes are not in season.
Yes, exactly.
And white at this time of the year? Ugh. Okay, well, anyway, this man comes to bring them to see Bashel.
Yes.
And remember, this man has a goatee, so he cannot be trusted, Jackie. The only man I trust with a goatee is Guy Fieri.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair.
Just saying.
Frosted tips and all.
I've met him once. Lovely man.
Yes.
Anyway, now
an angel on this planet.
Truly. Now, I don't want to tell Murtagh his business. But this is where you stay put.
Don't you?
Okay? Because he's starting to go with this guy.
Yeah.
You don't go to a potentially dangerous person on their terms. You stay there. You make them come to you.
Yes.
Hell, you even threaten that she doesn't want you to come find her, right? Yeah, I'll come find her.
Yeah.
She doesn't come, right?
She's not going to want that.
Yeah.
Like that
if you're
kind
coming
of
in
vibe.
hot, you play it to the hilt, goddammit.
Yeah.
Right?
Smart. True.
Commit to the bits, dude.
We do love a good commit to the bit. Murtagh really
Yeah.
dropped the ball here.
Unfortunately,
Folded too soon.
Yes, and unfortunately, Murtagh decides now he doesn't want to be rude or unreasonable, which is wild since his dragon is roaring, his sword is out, he's in full armor. I mean, it's about as rude as you can get, right?
Yes.
Can you imagine if I came to your house, Jax, on a tank with a machine gun, pointed it at your house, and told you to come see me? How absurd it would be if you just very calmly threw Ben out there and Ben was like, "Come on inside." And I was like, "Well, I don't want to see room," and then put down my machine gun, pulled it out of the tank, and was like, I'm gonna come in. That's just weird.
You know what? I can absolutely picture you rolling up to my house in a tank with a machine gun.
I appreciate
Could you
that.
picture it, Jackie?
Could you picture that?
No trouble at all. No, that's wild.
I think we have a new cover art for the podcast.
No, a tank would never fit on my street. America's crumbling infrastructure would not support that.
That's so true. That's funny. But they ride into the village and because they're going to go because they don't want to be rude.
No, that'd be crazy.
They found Murtagh's Achilles heel.
Politeness. That's so crazy from the man who cut off a dude's head once.
I know, it's so weird. The buildings here, as they get closer, look like a blend of Dwarven and Elven architecture.
Yes.
Covered in unfamiliar runes and images of dragon-like beasts. And my first thought was maybe Fangher. Murtagh also sees a swirling pattern everywhere that makes his vision sway.
Yeah.
Which is weird. And this place is spooky as hell. And Murtagh again wonders if maybe they should have reached out to Eragon. And
That's so weird.
It's like, yes, dude. Turn around, Murtagh. This place is not right.
Yes. I loved the descriptions of all this like artwork, the swirling patterns that like your eye can't quite follow.
Yeah.
I was like really drawn in by that imagery.
I was creeped out immediately.
Yes.
They stop in front of an ancient two-tiered temple decorated with more dragon-like sculptures and pillars perched on the edge of the town square with a broken water fountain in the center. A haunting horn blares as a parade of soldiers and white-robed figures exit the temple.
Yes.
And finally, 4 men in black bring out a litter bearing a woman with black hair and a fancy bun, strappy clothing made to look like runes, dark eyeshadow, and an ageless but distinctly human face.
Yes.
It's all very weird, but all I could think about, Jax, was, did Murtagh just run into his creepy emo soulmate? Maybe.
The aesthetics are like right on par, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, she greets them by saying she has been waiting for them and calling Murtagh her son. Oh. So maybe romance is off the table, and Murtagh's stomach drops as the insinuation of like Bashel might be Selena.
You know what?
Walks in.
I feel like this, like, I'm embarrassed this actually got me for a second. Like, I think I blame all of our talk about Selena popping up everywhere on the podcast. I'm like, that hot bitch is just all over the place. I was like, maybe this is her. I started like warming up for the mental gymnastics to be like, okay, this might be her. I could see how she escaped, faked her death. But
well, rest easy, Jax.
Thank
It's
God.
just a culty Turner phrase.
Oh, thank God.
All right? This should be another warning. He should leave.
Yes.
She continues
My
on.
child.
Yes,
Nothing
my child.
weirder.
No, very strange. She continues on that she knows exactly who Murtagh is and that he and Thorn were coming. And then she drops the bomb that they are fated to save the world.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's so fun for them.
Yeah, save the cheerleader, save the world. That's Murtagh.
Is Bashel the cheerleader?
Yeah, I guess so. What a way to play into our emo guy's delusions of grandeur, though, I gotta say.
I think so, yeah. He was like hooked immediately by this. That's
like-
worked like a charm.
He's like, me, a hero?
That's so weird you'd say that. I don't really think of myself as a
Flips
hero.
his hair back. I noticed her little hint that at least one dragon rider had been to this village already.
Yeah.
The village is called Nargograth. And she refuses to elaborate.
Yeah.
But I will, Jax.
Oh, good.
In the back of The Fork, the Witch, and the Worm, Gorgoth is defined as revenge.
Okay.
And it is defined because Ilgra, the Urgle chick fighting Vormund, named her spear Gorgoth.
Oh, right.
Anyway, that tangent aside, that's all I can really dive
So
into.
the village is called Vengeance.
Well, at least Vengeance. I don't really know what Null is. Like the Vengeance?
Yeah,
The
probably
revenge,
like
revenge. Place of revenge,
yeah,
probably.
place of.
Anyway, that tangent aside, she promises to answer all the questions in time. But first, a feast.
Ooh.
And she tells her main henchman, which we learned in his name is Grieve.
Yes.
To start the part. Also, Grieve.
Come on.
Red flag.
Come on, guys. I will say she does kick this party off, and like as an event planner, the speed with which the setup crew like
course.
flips this venue for dinner time, I was like, okay, should I be taking notes? Like, say what you will about Michelle, but she must have a wildly organized production flow, like down to the moment.
I didn't even think about that. It's so funny.
It was quick, Dane.
It was very quick. Murtagh notices that the people here are seemingly from all corners of Algazy and perhaps beyond. And there are dwarves and Urgles among the humans. He doesn't get much time to dwell on that before Bashel invites him to sit with her, and Murtagh may be sad, but he's not an idiot.
Oh, good.
So he does hesitate for a second. But
That's all the smarts we can muster.
That's
Is
all
like,
he's
should
got.
I go sit with her?
Yeah, probably. His need to see through this wins out.
Yeah.
Plus, his core intrigue trading is telling him that she isn't lying about all the Chosen One talk.
That did strike me as weird because, our hackles are up immediately. We're
Yeah.
like, well, this lady must be full of shit. And he's like, I detect no lies. I was like, well,
Can we really trust
are you
him?
wrong, bud?
Yeah,
Or is
yeah.
this, I think all the guesswork along the way in this episode really does serve to put a good hook in this portion of the story.
Totally. Well, Murtagh takes a seat, and immediately our rich boy is at home. He's brought platter after platter of delicacies, including some blueberries that shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And his relief at not having to do his own cooking is palpable. And I have to say,
course.
I was proud the feast didn't immediately lull him into a false sense of security.
Okay.
Because he seems to finally have learned to keep his goddamn magic sword with
Oh,
him.
yeah.
That's
For once,
character
he
growth.
leaves his armor and sword on.
He's like, I'm I'm going to keep these on.
She's like, you don't have to sit armed to dinner. And he's like, I think I do.
It'd be like, again, just to take the metaphor, it'd be like if I put my machine gun on the table. It was like, no, I think I'll have a burrito with that here, please. I don't know. It's wild. I'm happy for it, but it's still wild.
This is a good move on his part, but it is
wild.
Insane.
Yeah.
Talk about being rude, Murtagh.
And he tells Michelle about his run-ins with her goons,
Yes.
who she calls her eyes. Another red flag there. And she seems to care not at all that Murtagh killed them,
Right.
but does apologize for all the murder they tried. She says they wouldn't have tried to kill him if they'd known who he was.
Oh.
And her only hint of alarm is that he may have uncovered her spies in Seanon.
Oh, right. She didn't like that.
No.
But overall, her face is like a mask. She's like giving up nothing.
She
right?
doesn't seem
As
to care
they
at all.
talk.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
She pivots to ask Thorne why he's so swole for his age.
Great.
It's that creatine. He's got that good girl.
Gotta be.
The subject leads Murtagh to ask whether the dreamers worship dragons, and here Thorne responds exactly how I'd imagine Saphira would, that worshipping dragons would make perfect sense. Bajel dodges that question again, saying vaguely that they don't worship dragons, they revere them because they remember mysteries, and it's very, I'm like, okay.
Vagaries, she just doesn't explain most of this.
No. Thorne and Murtagh sidebar about what Thorne picked up from the mental contact when he talked to her.
Yeah.
And I was right. She is emo. But also something seems to be warping her mind. That was the term. It was there's something wrong with her.
Yes, she's looking at the world kind of through a lens darkly vibe, but also she's isolated, and there's isolation and desolation were the words he used maybe.
Which again, all red flags.
Yes.
Anyway, she drops a line about some of the villagers having actually seen the last dragon that came to Nelgograth.
Okay.
But in a super frustrating pattern for this chapter, she doesn't give us any more information.
Damn it.
She has the DJ crank up the lyre jams and asks her servant girl and litter bearers to dance. She then tells Murtagh it's been prophesized that he will dance for her someday.
That really gave me the telling somebody you'll dance for me. I'm your pre-event prep may be really on point. You may be good at this, but the vibes at your party, weird as hell.
Yeah, I grew up as a dancer, and if someone had said that to me, I still would have been
I would run.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah. I would tell my mom. I'd be like, Mom?
I would also tell your mom. The food keeps pouring onto the table, but while Murtagh eats cautiously, Michelle chows down with her bare hands, and Murtagh remarks on her 7th wine goblet refill, and she reveals that she's actually half elf, which fuels her limitless constitution.
Right.
She says her elven mother came to Nelgograth pregnant, gave birth, then died, and she never knew her human dad. So on top of all the other wild shit going on, Michelle, I guess, also has daddy issues.
Perfect. Who doesn't, really?
Yeah, and with all that craziness goes on, Murtagh returns again to his thoughts of how much he loves to be waited on.
Of course he does.
Incredible for a poor little rich boy.
Yeah.
Michelle finally finishes eating, swollen and glistening with meat grease.
Ugh.
And dude, some of the imagery in this section is really going to stick with me. It is gross.
I feel like you were a little ahead of me reading this section.
Yeah.
You were like, oh, just wait. You're going to be grossed out. And you were so right.
Yeah, it's gross. So now it's time for Murtagh to get some questions answered, and Michelle tells him that the dreamers dream is essentially a cataclysm.
Okay.
That Murtagh and Thorne will help kick off.
Right.
She claims she's a prophet. And I think Thorne must have listened to some of the haters segments because he thinks immediately that prophecy is bullshit.
Hey, look at you got through to someone.
I got
Dane.
one guy, yeah. Murtagh just thinks that this is true. It means her power, if this is true, that her power level is something that they shouldn't be fucking around with.
Yes.
So good thought.
Yes, the power it takes to do prophecy, he thinks is kind of beyond the pale. He's already scared because some of the most powerful magicians are the people who had true prophecies.
It's not a prophecy's not real. It's a prophecy is real, and that is she's not fucking around.
Yes, it's if she's not lying, this is really bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She says her position in this cult is the speaker or the voice for what sounds like the top dreamer.
Okay.
I don't know who that is, but that's as much as she'll say to an outsider.
Ugh.
She says she does vow that Murtagh and Thorne will do violence on behalf of the dreamers.
Oh, fuck.
And that puts my hackles up.
Yeah.
Right away.
Yes.
Then she dismisses them to bed, escorted by Grieve, which is, again, weird. Murtagh tells Thorne he'll pull an emo teen classic and sneak out later to do some recon.
Okay, good.
But Grieve seems a little bit of a dick on a power trip, talking Murtagh through the temple. He's walking him through it. But our boy has his eyes peeled, thinking the sculptures in here remind him of the insane Eldonari in the most nightmarish way possible.
That's right, yeah.
And Grieve tells him that the first dreamers made it when they discovered the well. So immediately I'm like, drugs? Gotta be drugs.
I mean, It definitely has that big like psychedelics vibe of like when people make all those like mandala glow in the dark posters.
Yes.
It feels like the magic version of that.
They're like, this place rocks once we get our black lights on.
Spooky now, but just wait.
It's a real fun time. Although Grieve is about as far from a hippie as you could get, so we'll see.
Okay.
He basically calls Murtagh an infidel before
right.
threatening that Bashel will use something called the breath on him.
Yeah.
Is that a Rozak thing, you think?
It did sound like it. Yeah, that was my very first impression. And I'm just like, this guy's such a dick.
Yeah. Either way, I do not like the Grieve vibes as he leaves Murtagh in his chamber door. Anyway, Murtagh looks over his new digs, and this place is nice for where it is. I mean, it's cut from all of humanity and out in the middle of freaking nowhere.
Yeah.
This should be rustic, but I just have to say it again. He should leave.
Yes,
Bad
it's
signs.
like way too clean.
Like
I did
rug
think,
and stuff.
Yes, they seem to have like not
Four-poster beds.
super luxury furnishings,
Yeah.
but well crafted.
Yes.
Something Murtagh appreciates.
He does look over the decor.
It's not gaudy, but it's well crafted. It's well made.
Well, he looks at his window and notices that the feast is already cleaned up, so no one stayed to dance and get drunk or anything.
Yeah.
Or people don't have freedom. I mean, if someone threw a party for me, it just wouldn't end the moment I left, right?
Well,
I'm getting some culty vibes.
I don't know, Dane. We all do. Just everything fizzles out as soon as you walk out of the room.
Well, you said
That
it.
kind of guy.
Cut it, loop it. But Murtagh, oh my God. Nice. But Murtagh just decides he wants to look for secrets, despite the culty vibes.
I mean, yeah, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
He's got to know more.
Yeah, weird. Using some magic to put the guard to sleep. That's kind of down by Thorn before climbing out the window and using Thorn's head like a ladder.
Yeah,
that
that
nice.
was cute.
Thorn thinks they should just leave and let Arya, Eragon, or Nasawada deal with it. And I'm like, yes, Thorn. But Murtagh convinces him once again that they need more information about all of this. Yeah. Murtagh sneaks inside the tower that's in this little village and smells bird poop immediately. There are 100 of coops with thousands of birds in here, and they discover they're crows.
Ooh.
Maybe like a farm for the amulets?
It seems like it. Yeah, that was my thought.
Murtagh almost falls in the bird poop, catches himself. His hand is deep in it when he finds something under there, an Electrum cloak clasp.
Okay.
I just so in case anybody didn't know, Electrum is a mix of gold, silver, and maybe copper and other metals that can be it can be naturally occurring.
Oh my God, Electrum facts.
Electrum facts.
That's
But
so
you
funny.
can make it, or it's naturally occurring.
Is that something you just knew, just off the dome,
well in
or did you have to look it up?
in the first few editions of D&D, Electrum is a currency. It's not like it's gold, silver, Electrum, and platinum and all that
That is
stuff.
so funny.
So I learned it when I was younger.
Absolutely thought that was just like an in-universe made-up metal. Like I was like, cool, magic, Electrum. That doesn't exist.
You know, it's funny. I did too, but my old DM was like, no, it's an actual real thing.
Yeah, he's into that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's so funny.
Anyway, that's a little fun Electrum fact for you.
facts.
Yeah. This thing is marked up with this Electrum piece is marked up with the crest of one of the Forsworn, a human named Sairlith.
Yes.
With a puce, which is a fucking pink dragon. Apparently, he. By the way, I had to look up puce. Knew what Electrum was, didn't know what puce was.
Isn't puce the color of dried tick blood? That's what it was named for.
Yes.
Isn't that foul?
It's disgusting.
So gross.
Disgusting.
Hate to see it.
Well, Murtagh only likes the purest puce, so tick blood abounds. I don't know.
Gross.
Apparently, Sairlith was a mediocre Forsworn who never really got famous and then died in an ambush. Murtagh assumes by the Varden, so I'm going to add that one to Brom's assassination tally.
Okay.
Because we don't really know those ones that he killed. So
True.
Murtagh thinks maybe Gal knew about this place, or maybe Sairlith was working with the Dreamers on the side, maybe against Gal. And this is getting peak level sketchy for me. There are Forsworn involved.
Yes.
Maybe Gal came here, and what if this is where Morzan was trained and Durza was found? I don't know. Have I mentioned he needs to get out?
Maybe once or twice, I think, Dane.
And I think Thorn is with me as we end this section, reminding Murtagh of Umaroth's warning.
Yes.
And I think this is the third time Thorn has been vocally against being here at this point, and that is where we end.
Yes,
That's
that's
the episode.
Oh, goodbye, everybody. It's been real. No, that takes us to chapters 4 through 6. Buckle up because we do a big old flip flop to start this section. The weight of the intel about Sairlith finally gets Murtagh to question his insistence that they solve this clearly above their pay grade mystery.
Yeah.
But it seems like we are just not fated to have our two sad boys on the same sensible train of thought at the same time in this book, because now it's Thorn who's insisting that they stay to eliminate what he thinks could be a threat to all of dragonkind at this point. Like,
what a twist.
I know. I'm like, fuck, Thorn. They agree to proceed with caution, which really seems like an oxymoron in this situation. It's like, you cannot have both of those things. They are mutually exclusive here. And they head out to investigate the field behind the temple. The sulfurous smell rears its ugly head again here. It had been kind of like fading into the background for them. But now it smells stronger than ever as they make their way back into another enchanted garden tucked in this like small pine grove. It reminded me of Ren's basement, but they press right through that towards the base of the mountains.
Fantastic.
Where they find a gigantic cave shaped to like mirror the architecture of the city. And it's adorned with some like torture-y looking like chains and hardware that not great. Not great. There's a primitive looking altar to the side of the cave entrance, and I felt so seen when Murtagh makes it a point to think about how tacky it is that altar's off center. I'm like, that's a real pet peeve of mine too, dude.
I love he's taking to the decor everywhere.
Yes. You got to get the aesthetics right, or what's it all been about? You know what I mean?
He's like, the feng shui here, not working. Yeah.
Well, when some cultists start to climb out of the cave's depths, Murtagh and Thorn beat feet back to their quarters, barely avoiding detection. But their relief does nothing to soothe the burning curiosity they have after their nighttime adventures, and after wondering if the brimstone fumes are, in fact, some wild drugs, they just head to bed. They're like, well, whatever, we'll sleep it off.
Yeah. We'll sweep off the drugs that are infusing this entire area.
Boo. But you know, clean girl Murtagh has to do his nighttime skincare routine, and I see that dedication, girl. I got you.
He's putting on pimple patches?
Yes, that glow is earned. He decides he'll give it 2 days max before they get violent up in this bitch, and then drifts off to fitful nightmares that match up with Thorn's nightmares. Like, they can tell there's some like bad dream crossover going on while they sleep here. And Murtagh's dreams were giving like the mind prison Gal had Naswada in.
Yes.
That's what it reminded me the most of. He starts by being drawn down into like the pit of an insatiably hungry consciousness before being rescued by Thorn, only to fly into the frenzied attack of a flock of eagles that morphs into a thunder of dragons. Love that a group of dragons is called thunder. Then we get a lightning fast smash cut to a memory of torturing Naswada before the nightmares wrap up with Murtagh like in the throes of battle fever, decimating foes right and left while crows circle overhead and Bashel watches with like approval. Maybe some of this like violence he would do on her behalf she was talking about. I don't think I really know. I thought a lot about this. I don't think I really know how to make heads or tails of this dream yet. Like the mix of PTSD flashbacks, but with like purely fantastical tableaus and like things that feel similar to what was prophetic dreaming in the original Inheritance cycle. It seems important, but I don't know enough, I think, to parse through it all for answers other than drugs.
Yeah,
I mean,
drugs,
is the answer always drugs? Yeah. I don't know.
It seems where we go quite often for some reason.
I mean, it just feels weird, and I feel like because it's all mixed up, it's like Eragon would have a dream that felt, you know, very heightened, very surrealist, and we would think that was probably prophetic, and then he would have a dream that like seemed purely like a nightmare, or him like working through some like trauma or flashback, you know? But this is all mix them ups.
Yeah, it's a soup of it all.
Exactly. Yeah. So Murtagh wakes to clanging bells, linking up with Thorn, realizing they had the same fucked up dream. And we get another gross PTSD anecdote, which is that Gal used to give them the Naswada mind prison treatment on a regular basis. So he's like very used to this.
Yeah. This would be horrible for me. I don't like taking hallucinogens in real life for this reason. I'm a person who doesn't like to like let go and relax.
That's so
control.
Weird.
And the distortion of reality really makes me feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So having this done as a means of control and torture is not cool.
No, we don't like it. Pretty bad.
I'm starting to think that Gal guy was not a good guy.
What?
You know
I mean, Dane, he was pro-education.
That's true.
How could you fault the man?
You know what? His policies were fine.
Well, one night of these dreams is enough to make Thorn want to get the fuck out of Dodge. And yes, Thorn, hold on to that. But now Murtagh again wants his answers from Bashel.
Come on, guys.
And just how far are you going to push this evil nightmare secret cult village of weirdness? How long are you going to stay here? You know?
I feel so uncomfortable.
I hate it.
Yeah.
Murtagh gets himself ready for the day when Elaine, Bashel's serving girl from the feast, comes with breakfast. And when Elaine calls him my lord, Murtagh feels a little uncomfortable. He knows it's his due to be addressed as such.
Of course it is.
Yes, but he thinks about how it's only because of Morzan's evil works that his family has this station, which This really is the crux, I think, of what we're starting to see time and again with Murtagh in this book. Like he is a classist.
Yes.
And it's just so counter to what like we'd see with his half brother, I think. Eragon often feels unsuited or unworthy of the positions he's in and the deference he's shown. But Murtagh's place as a lord is like as natural to him as a fish in water, despite the ways he thinks about himself and he thinks about his heritage, you know?
Yeah, it's something that like kind of defines his character, this
I think
juxtaposition.
so. Yes, I like that we keep getting ticks of this as it's coming up. And Murtagh pumps Elaine for information as she takes him down to Bishel in the courtyard. And we learn that the witch has ruled here for a very long time. She is well respected, and she can indeed tell the future. Elaine confirms this.
Sure. I'll believe it when I see it.
Of course you will. She also tells Murtagh that she and a select few of her comrades wear white, like they're dressed differently than most of the cultists, because an old religious classic, purity. She can never touch or be touched by a man in her life. So they're a special set of like acolytes. I think they live in the temple where the rest of the villagers live in the like domed buildings on the outskirts. So
it's giving me Nexium.
Yes, strong Nexia vibes. In turn, she asks Murtagh about the outside world because she's never left Nal Gorgoth. That is so wild to think about to me, but Murtagh thinks it's more the rule than the exception in this like place and time, which makes a lot of sense. It's like most people haven't left their villages, girl.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is the majority of people stay within like pretty close to where they grew up now.
Yes, yeah. I think
like 70% of Americans don't have passports. I'm pretty sure
well,
that like
yes, no, I think leaving the country, but I think it's hard because America's so big and so many people travel to like different states or like even just different sections of their gigantic state. Like even if I'd only been to Northern California, that would be leaps and bounds beyond what this girl's talking about.
That's
you know
true.
what I mean?
Yeah.
But Elaine goes on to drop a bomb. Every person in this village has the same dreams. And she thought the rider bond would mean that Murtagh would also have had these same dreams his whole life. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that was weird.
More alarming by the second, I think.
Yeah, everything you learn, you're just like, oh no. Oh no.
And after all Elaine's answers, Thorne allows her to touch him and makes mental contact with her because like everyone else in this place, she's obsessed with the dragon. Everybody's always like drawing their eyes to Thorne. They seem, like we said, to kind of worship the dragon.
Just saying, it's a loophole. Thorne's a dude. That's all I'm saying.
So true. She absolutely loses her shit at this. Like she falls down, I think, and like runs away. She freaks out.
Doesn't Thorne give her a vision of like things outside the area?
Yes, he does.
Okay,
yeah. She freaks the fuck out. And on their way into Bishel, they pass by a group of villagers in what seems like a morning group dream confessional ritual. That's not the ritual I did in my sorority, just to be clear. Very different.
Sure it is. The fact that you had to say anything, Jacqui, makes me think maybe...
Whoops. Murtagh thinks of them, like all these people, as a zombie hive mind. This imagery really got to me too. It scares him about the level of devotion here, but it also makes him long for his days as a part of an army or like traveling with Eragon. And it's like, emo guy, reach out to your bro, get a community. This is what you're longing for.
He literally knows another dragon rider.
Yes.
Like literally knows
you could do this. But this weird little like chanting flash mob in the streets is the thing that finally gets Murtagh to realize that Nal Gorgoth is a straight up cult. And it's like, yes, get out of here, dude. You gotta go.
It took him way too long.
Yes, but you know, we all realize that maybe some organizations are cults too late in life. I get that, Murtagh. That's fair.
That sounds right.
Alas, Grieve, who is just continuing to give Sloane level dick energy, comes to bring Murtagh and Thorne to Bishel in her chambers. And in truly peak haughty dragon form, Thorne agrees to go as far as the door. He's like, well, I'll go to the door. She can come to me from there. And I hope Murtagh is taking notes. This is what you're talking about, right?
This is what I mean. Play it to the hilt, man.
Yes, Thorne's learned from you, Murtagh, not so much. But another frenzied like sculpture they see in the temple's courtyard gives them the impression of something Murtagh can't quite grasp. Again, like something kind of Eldenari adjacent. And Grieve says that these sculptures are depictions of a dream. And again, like all this like art and iconography through Nal Gorgoth, it was really fun writing, I think, from Christopher Paolini. That makes a lot of sense to me, that like it's twisted like your mindset as you're dreaming. They're horrifying to picture, of course, but like you gotta love the commitment to an aesthetic, I think. Murtagh's got to be appreciating this.
Of course.
Bichelle's main chamber in the temple sports this like gigantic fire pit burning incense and a floor covered in the same like twisting mosaic. So again, I'm thinking hippies.
Yes, for sure.
As my reference for this cult.
Me too.
Except for Bichelle sits on this like carved stone throne. So maybe not.
It's like a cross between hippie and cult.
Yes. Well, some hippies might have been in cults, but they seem like nicer and out in fields full of flowers.
Yeah.
Not like...
Well, that's how they lure you into the cult.
Yes, I feel like all this like brutalist stone architecture is a little at odds with some of the like hippie vibes. You know what I mean?
Yes, totally.
Well, Bichelle beckons Murtagh into what she calls the Court of Crows, telling him that the last rider entered here 50 years before. So that makes sense timeline-wise for Serlith, Gal, or any of the other Forsworn.
Yes.
And then she directs his attention to a massive flock of crows roosting in the rafters that she also apparently counts among her many children to command.
Yeah.
They swoop down to perch all over her throne at this, and she declares herself the queen of the crows, Dane. So the creep level is rising perilously close to the top of the charts at this point.
Isn't a group of crows called a murder?
Yeah. So weird how that works.
She's the queen of a murder.
A murder, yeah. Yep, that's her.
Fun.
She asks Murtagh and Thorn about their dreams, and our emo guy gives her the whole confusing rundown, which I was like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you just telling her this? With the exception, he does leave out Naswada's little cameo. Apparently that's too private. Bichelle claims she's certified fluent in nonsense dreams and proceeds to kick off a spooky little ritual in a language Murtagh doesn't understand with the cultists in the chamber. The fire sparks, the room fills with darkness, cold, what sounds like static electricity. And then in a trance-like voice that reminded me a lot of Professor Trelawney from Harry Potter. You know, she was kind of a charlatan, but every once in a while she did have a true vision, and this gave me very much that vibe.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the prophecy in Wheel of Time.
Yes.
When that lady all of a sudden just randomly switches and then falls down dead.
Exactly.
Yes.
Precisely that.
And spoilers.
Yes, if you don't want Wheel of Time spoilers.
If you don't want Wheel of Time or Harry Potter spoilers, you should stop listening.
You've come to the wrong place. That's just the milieu of this podcast.
That's our base.
Yeah. It's the ocean we're swimming in. But Bichelle says, quote, "See you now, the center of all things, the king on his throne, the snake in his lair. See you now past sorrows, injustices unrevenged, and future triumphs. The cleansing sword, the son freed of his father. See you this now and know it to be true." I'm just like,
Sounds creepy.
Yes. So the sword and father stuff, I think, is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense to me for Murtagh. What do you make of the king and the snake?
I don't even know. I mean, it is notable that we did learn like 50 pages before this that Murtagh is literally wearing a crown.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
So I think it does make sense that Murtagh might be the king in this situation.
Yes.
Seems weird for the person in charge of this place to be like designating him the king. But again, maybe playing a little bit on his delusions of grandeur, like drawing him in.
The only thing I can think about the snake is the religion was the kind of what I was like. So Murtagh and this cult,
I like
essentially.
that. I mean, I guess I just think of it as like this slithering like undercurrent of darkness that we just don't know a lot about yet.
Yeah. And I thought spirals, dragons that don't look like dragons can I mean, maybe kind of look like serpents.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I like that read on it. Murtagh is finally, understandably, keyed up at this, and he cuts the bullshit to demand some answers from Bichelle. But the witch throws him for another loop by pointing out that the chamber they're in is identical to the Hall of the Soothsayer beneath Erobane. This got me a little bit. And the original inhabitant of that hall that Gal told Naswada about, the one that we thought was giving kind of like Angela-ish vibes, that was actually a speaker, just like Bichelle. And Murtagh is familiar with the lore of this soothsayer, and he decides that if Bichelle really is as powerful as the soothsayer of legend, he needs to know what she predicts for him. If she's making true predictions, he needs to get his before he gets out of here. And I
don't know, man. Well, I just had a weird thought that I have not, this is not on the notes, but I think in that original series, it says that there's natural, like, gas that comes through.
Yes, so the elves built Erobane at that place because of the gases that were, like, coming up through the Hall of the Soothsayer, giving people these, like, prophetic visions,
and then
basically.
didn't, when Nasawada was being, like, throwing Gal visions, do you think it's possible they're, like, interspersed?
Mixed up with some
of this gas
some dreamer
stuff?
shit? I bet, yeah.
Weird.
I definitely think so, especially because I think like the way her visions were mixed up and like she ended up picturing Murtagh in one of them. Like, that didn't necessarily feel like all Gal to me, you know?
Yeah.
It seems like Gal would be throwing at her like the vision she had of the Urgles attacking her and like the just true horror kind of nightmare visions, but maybe the stuff that was a little more like insidious that involved Murtagh, it would make a little bit of sense to me if that's like a parallel to the way Murtagh's having visions of Naswada here.
Yeah, weird.
Yes.
Okay.
But again, instead of answering any of this shit, Michelle rants about the power of places like Nalgorgoth and the religion that they birthed. She says Murtagh could not have resisted the pull to find her if he'd tried. And then she confirms that Gal himself once made a grave error by trying to destroy this village, which shakes Murtagh and me.
Yeah, it's a little
and probably
creepy.
you two to our cores.
Yeah,
We're
it's
a
pretty
little scared.
freaky.
He loses his patience just absolutely at this point, but she bids them to stay for another day and night before they judge the dreamers. And every single horror movie watching bone in my body was screaming, run, dude, reading this.
You don't stay as long as they want you to stay.
Dude. So insane.
Yeah.
But I guess calling Dragon Rider mommy and daddy wouldn't be a very like satisfying plot line. So Murtagh and Thorn decide that they need to learn the truth for themselves naturally.
Of course.
So my section ends with Michelle, again the expert planner, revealing that she has a full itinerary of boar hunting ready for them to jump into. I will happily admit this. I think this had to be like the very last thing I saw coming in this book. I was like, oh, wait. They're gonna what?
Yeah, I agree. I was like, wait.
Very funny.
A boar hunt?
Yes.
Even the like landscape they're in, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Anyway, that does bring us to chapters 7 through 9. And this section starts with Murtagh reflecting on how he'd normally be excited about a boar hunt.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and I know I keep bringing it up, but Paolini has done a really great job of reminding us that Murtagh grew up as a rich nobleman.
Yes.
It can be easy to focus on a horrible like Murtagh's life has been to this point, but he also had a pretty like base level of wealth, access, and experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Anyway, Murtagh also thinks about how dangerous boar hunts are, and this is true, by the way, in real life. Boars do not fuck around. If they gore you, it's not great. And a shout out to Robert Baratheon. That guy gets it.
Spoilers, Dane. Just add Game of Thrones to the list.
Yeah, it's also Game of Thrones. Anyway, boar hunting also gives us another Barsht mention.
Oh, good.
Because Murtagh's first hunt was with that overpowered bastard. And I find it like interesting that Barsht keeps coming up in this book.
Of course you do.
To me, it seems like Paolini recognized maybe that Barsht came out of left field, like on that last book.
Okay.
And is backfilling him in, like, the history of him a bit.
Interesting.
And Murtagh's reflecting that he, like, was humiliated and bullied on his first hunt with Barsht. So, I mean, it's a good way to do it. But
yeah.
It does seem...
Do you think Christopher Paolini listened to your What Are the Haters Saying?
Yes, I will take credit for this. That's for sure it. Anyway, it sounds like our emo boy had a bad in middle school.
Yes.
And another thing you and I had in common, Murtagh.
How many are we at this point? What's
know.
the tally?
I'm just saying we are each other.
Infinite.
It's just an infinity symbol with Murtagh on one end and me on the other. Thorn has some funny bits where he makes fun of how much Basel talks.
Yes.
And how Murtagh has to like ride a horse for the hunt. And I talked about his and Saphira's humor in the first episode's deep dive, and this totally builds on that characterization. He's just an observational comic, you know?
Oh, good. Yeah. Just a regular Jerry Seinfeld out here.
Yeah, what's the deal? But he's a funny dude, and it's got to be all that pain, right? Isn't that what comedians say?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Anyway.
Must be. Gallows humor.
He's gallows humor. He's working through it.
Yeah.
Bashel gives Murtagh some poorly made spears and tells him that magic is off limits on the hunt because these boars are special.
Of course.
And hunting is important.
Of course.
And it goes on for a while. Yada, yada, yada. And I can't with all the hunting stuff. I don't really get hunting in our modern world.
Okay.
And I don't really get the obsession with it in fantasy books.
Okay.
When a character is living out the land or on the run, I can get behind that, you know, because it's literally like food and survival.
Yeah.
But this great hunt thing has always seemed a bit indulgence to me. It's a weird fantasy trope. I just don't identify with it. I don't know.
That's so weird, Dane. I feel like it's just like a hop, skip, and a jump from here down a barely even greased slope to like the elves and all their veganism. What do you mean you can't get on board?
Oh man, I'll be for sure talking about balance to get like a hamburger just like Eragon after a week of veganism. Okay. So let's not get too crazy. Okay. Murtagh also makes the same blunder with Michelle that Eragon did with Arya. He remarks that it takes great strength to hunt boars and that he has never seen a woman do it. And
Of course.
and I think he's clearly forgetting about her health elf heritage, right?
Yeah, that she's clearly a badass.
Yeah, and she laughs it off and reminds him that she's no human woman.
Yeah.
And to his credit, Murtagh only needs this one comment to accept that. And I think Eragon took a few books and some sparring sessions to get through this, to the same point.
I mean, and I feel like also if we do get Eragon and Arya in a future book, I have exactly zero faith that he won't still be trying to treat her like a damsel in that storyline. Like he will absolutely be reverting back. So good on Murtagh, I think.
That's true. But that's just love.
Oh my god. Isn't Michelle also like dressed crazy for this hunt? Like she comes out in like armor.
Yes.
She looks wild.
She looks wild.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got some horses here as they mount up, and I think we should bring back horse facts.
Oh god.
For just a second.
Oh, okay.
These little guys seem to be inspired by the fjord horses from
Okay.
Scandinavia, which are smaller than like regular horses
Yeah.
and get furry for the winter
Ooh,
to withstand
cute.
extreme cold in the mountainous regions.
Cute.
So horse facts.
Hell yeah. I thought we were going to be stuck this season with just Electrum facts.
No, I believe that you brought up that Christopher Paolini would not miss an opportunity to bring up some horse flesh.
No.
In one of these past episodes.
Fucking called it.
And
See that, kids? Literary devices. Foreshadowing. I knew it.
well, anyway, back to our regularly scheduled program.
Okay.
Murtagh notices something on the way out of town. There's no dogs around.
Ooh, bad
Not a
sign.
single one. And this strikes him as odd.
Yes.
Because remember, he is a dog man.
Huge red flag, dude.
Yes, me too, Murtagh. Me too. He is so weirded out. He asks Michelle about it, and she calls dogs blasphemous and say they don't take well to the strange nightmares of the area. Huge red flag.
Yes, she's a bad person. Dogs are great.
And hot on the heels of that, he notices that there are also too many children here for the number of the adults. So that's strange.
That is really creepy. You don't want too many kids.
And not enough dogs.
It's like, where'd they all come from?
That's a hellscape. I mean, Murtagh remarks...
We want a 1 kid to 1 dog ratio.
Yes, exactly. And every 10 kids, you can have 1 werecat.
Ooh.
Anyway, or a regular
Generous
cat.
of you.
Yes. Murtagh remarks as they ride that he has never seen a place like this except for the burning plains. And Michelle drops a bomb saying there are other places like this, such as the Barrows of Enghelm, where Kolkovek the Terrible, the old Urgal king, lies in state. Sound familiar? Murtagh, bro, you have to leave. I feel like I cannot stress this enough.
Yes.
He's playing with fire.
Yes. So bad.
They arrive at a place with charred land, dead trees, and gigantic mushrooms of all colors and shapes with spores flying around in the air, just everywhere.
Yeah.
Running among the horror show are huge black boars that Michelle says tastes amazing from eating all the mushrooms.
This really gave me big foie gras vibes, they're fattened up on something very specific and
Yes.
it is horrifying but also is a delicacy.
That's illegal, right?
It was for a really long time. I don't know if it still is. It definitely is torturous for the ducks they use to make that.
Well, with the Supreme Court, I'm sure they've got it locked in.
Jesus.
Sorry, we'll have to cut that too.
I know. I'm dang.
Speaking of foie gras, what's very gross to me is that the ground here is squishy, like one big mushroom. And dude, I would not want to be here. I don't think I could even stay here.
It is gross, but it's just a testament to Christopher Paolini does creepy so well, and that coupled with this descriptive imagery, it's almost like a fucked up version of when he was describing Ellesmere for the first time. Instead of this beautiful epic natural landscape, it's this epic and gross natural landscape.
It's so gross.
Yeah.
But it's on. Thorne
Okay.
drives the boars from a far side of the valley, and Murtagh gives us their classic edgy character line saying, I hunt better alone. Which, of course, he does.
Yeah, I mean, what will an emo teen turned coffee shop hipster do without time alone in the woods, Dane? That's got to be a core character trait for this guy.
Totally. He needs to write poetry out there.
Yes.
Murtagh watches as apparently hundreds of these boars run around. A group of them, which was a lot for
Too
me.
many.
It was too many. A group of them charging the hunting party. One of the warriors is trampled and dies of a smashed chest with right away, which just seems like a waste of perfectly good cultist, if you ask me. Michelle gets to killing her first boar by lifting it in the air with a spear and slamming it into the ground with a howl.
Wild to behold.
Yeah, and I thought she couldn't get any more intense.
Yeah.
Murtagh kills his own nightmare boar, but not before it tackles him to the ground to be trampled by its brethren.
Bad.
His wards are wearing thin as he's stampeded.
Yep.
And he blacks out because he refuses to save himself and fail the no magic test,
This
which
fucking guy
is just textbook toxic masculinity, right? Or am I crazy?
I mean, it definitely sounded like it to me.
Yeah.
Far be it from me to make a broad generalization on the opposite gender, but
I won't judge him. We know how we got into this episode.
Yes.
I mentioned something very similar. And we have to wait and see if he's even alive because we're back in a spooky dreamland.
oh great.
Murtagh's having a horrible vision of an enormous wingless dragon rising from the depths of the earth beneath a black sun. And just as he's about to flame his ass, he's jolted awake by a blood-soaked Bashel. Thorn comes charging in, saying Murtagh's mind was completely closed to him during the vision.
So bad.
Which is really a cherry on top of the bad omen Sunday at this place. Like,
Such a fucking bad sign. And I will say this time, I do feel pretty sure this dream is a premonition, I think. Like, the super poetic and heightened language in that dream gave me big Eragon's vision of the ship vibes. Like, this seems like a clear parallel to me. And knowing what I know about Paolini, I'm leaning towards definitely prophetic here.
yeah, and like, they're brothers. So, like, if
Yeah.
one has it, maybe both of them have it.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think I read it in an interview somewhere. Somebody was asking about like the proliferation of the dream sites like Bashel was talking about.
Yeah.
And, you know, who might have been influenced by or like who might have smelled sulfur throughout the original series. And Christopher Paolini just said like very ambiguously, like, weird how many magic users are having like spooky dreams. That was his answer. And I was like, oh,
Okay. I
interesting.
wonder what that is about.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, it might be even more confusing that Murtagh, with zero hesitation, tells Bashel exactly what he saw.
I can't believe he keeps doing this.
And I can give him a pass for the recent brain trauma, but I can't believe this court-intrigued trained guy would be this open with the horror show dreams about anything.
Yes, it's like he was playing better like 3D chess with fucking Lyrith than he is here.
Yeah, I don't know. Bashel tells him that this is basically an elite-level dreamer hallucination,
Great.
and it is a promise. And I'm
Yes.
just thinking maybe he accidentally chomped down on some of those shrooms when he went face down in the mud. That's what I think.
Drugs the answer yet again.
Drugs the answer always.
Yeah, the number of times she says things are a promise.
Yeah. Yuck. Don't like it.
Nope.
She also says that the dreamers are older than the elves as we know them.
Yeah.
Which really got me out here looking at timelines in the Inheritance Wiki. I don't think,
Buckle up.
Yeah, I don't think it's a stretch to assume that the elves became elves, as she said, when they formed the Rider Pact with the dragons and fundamentally changed their race.
Okay, yeah.
Which would mean this cult is like 2,000 years old, formed at a time when only dwarfs, dragons, and the gray folk roamed Alagasia.
Okay.
So I think this totally explains the unfamiliar, archaic language and architecture here.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Bashel also seems to give zero fucks about her 3 wounded cultists.
Great.
Instead, trading courtly jests with Murtagh about whether his kill counts. And I have to say, Murtagh's insistence on observing formal manners with Bashel is really striking here.
Yeah.
Every time he calls this clearly nefarious psycho, "I'm my lady," it hits me that this, like, he must think he's playing some sort of game where he's the upper hand here. And I just don't share that confidence, my
No,
dude.
dude.
This seems bad, bro.
Seems bad. Yeah, he seems like he's being overly casual about it
Yes.
in a way, like, or overly glib, maybe not casual because the language is formal, but
Yeah, or relaxed, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. As they approach the fallen comrades, these cultists, one is actually still alive. But instead of healing the man, Bashel delivers him some sort of last rite before giving him a classic mercy kill.
oh yeah, that was gross.
Murtagh is outraged, but Bashel tells him to stay the fuck out of cult business.
Great.
And it seems like this finally gets Murtagh to at least start to see the depth of the darkness in Bashel and understand how much shit he's in right now.
Start to see it.
Start to see it.
Come
It's
on,
like, come
Murtagh.
on, bud. He thinks that she's every bit as bad as Gal, but
Okay.
from what he just saw, she's still able to inspire love and pure devotion in her people. And I know I just said he's finally getting it, but not quickly enough.
Yes.
That combo of traits should have the two of them getting out as fast as possible from this like cursed mushroom forest.
Yes, it's so bad. I think like it really struck me too the way that cultist was looking at her with just like this pure love. He's like excited to get murdered by her. It's so gross.
It's worse than Gal in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Anyway, Gal would never do that. I don't think. Anyway, but instead,
No, he wouldn't care enough about someone
No.
to mercy kill him.
he'd be like, leave him there. But instead, don't pigs eat people? Anyway, but instead, Thorn just scoops Murtagh and our emo boys head back to the village. Thorn asks what should be the easiest question they've ever answered. Should they stay through the night? And Murtagh is unsure.
Who's to say, you know?
Yeah, I can't figure this one out.
How could we know?
They have a lot of information at this point.
Yeah.
Limited soldiers are on the road.
Yep.
And Bashel is away from her center of power.
Yep.
This is the moment to take your leave, right?
I think so, yeah.
Going back into the spider's web seems A strange choice.
Yes, at the very least.
Murtagh's first priority is cleaning up once he gets back, and he just goes for it, taking his shirt off in front of the Virgin and pouring water over himself in a scene that reminds me that this guy is also related to Rory. You know?
Yes, this is very strong hammer.
Yes. Murtagh asks Alin if mercy killing is normal, and she's, light conversation as he's ripped. And she essentially says that Bashil could do no wrong, and her ways are beyond understanding.
Classic
They are
cult
but a
stuff.
speck of dust compared to her.
Yeah.
This is some zealot shit, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Not great.
No.
Elaine sees the scar in Murtagh's back. That's not all she sees. And rather
outta here.
than rather than disgust, she seems to feel compassion.
Yes.
Then pity after finding out about it that his dad did it. And these two kids are getting along pretty well. Just
Yeah?
saying, Murtagh.
Stop.
She seems nice. I bet she'd never even thought about making a magic secret police. You know what I mean?
This is the girlfriend he needs.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
The one who probably doesn't have a Gestapo. We don't know that, to be clear. Allegedly, Elaine's never thought about it. We don't know.
That's true. Maybe this is the one idea she had for Bashel. So as Elaine helps Thorn...
He's got a type, Dane.
Yeah, so as Elaine helps Thorn clean his paws, we get this weird thought from Murtagh that he's never thought to do this. It makes sense on the one hand. I mean, he did note during the SFAR phase of the side quest that he doesn't think of doing things for others.
That's true.
But on the other hand, Murtagh
tough.
is kind of a clean freak.
Yeah.
And Thorn is basically his minivan. I feel like he'd keep his minivan clean. You know what I mean?
A minivan, Dane?
Of
We
course.
can't get any other vehicle type for like the badass red murder dragon.
I don't know what you're
Minivan.
talking about. I just said the most badass of vehicles on the road.
Hey, you didn't say Chrysler Pacifica. You said generic minivan.
Also sponsored by Chrysler Pacifica. Drive
Dana's-
one like a man.
Dane is famously a murdered out Pacifica guy.
Love it. Best car I've ever owned.
Yes.
I love it.
Can confirm. Very comfy.
Like, it's got wings like Thorn. The side doors
Does.
open. Like it's got,
Okay, I'm back on board. Thorn's a minivan.
Yeah.
Well, no. Thorn's a Pacifica.
He's a Pacifica, specifically.
Yes.
Yes. Because me and Murtagh are similar.
Of course.
We both ride chunky boys.
The parallels continue on.
He named him something cool. I named mine Peggy. It's all great.
It's the same. It's the same.
Yeah. Anyway, Murtagh decides, I think fatally, that he has to talk to Michelle one last time.
Yes.
He thinks he'll get his chance when the hunting party returns, but there's no time before a group of people in irons, young and old, men and women, slaves, are led into the village.
Not what you want.
So yeah, Michelle uses her thralls. She uses slaves.
Yes. Didn't they also seem like enthralled?
Yes.
Literally. Yeah. They seem not quite there.
Another red flag, brah.
You think?
But there's really an interesting aside here where Murtagh sees these people and thinks that Nasawada outlawed slavery and serfdom after she took over as a queen.
Good.
Which is awesome.
She did it.
But the good bit...
Mission accomplished, am I right?
But the good bit is when Murtagh thinks to himself that this is a little bit undercut by the whole Durigagata situation, which hard agree. Murtagh gets it.
So he is thinking about the magic secret police.
I think we're getting some magic secret police
Oh, great.
confirmation here, at least for Naswada.
Yeah.
Anyway, Murtagh voices his anger, and Michelle tells him that everyone serves of their own free will, and that no one is forced. Odd, they're all in chains. She goes on to say that he will even serve her willingly one day. So we
More
have
of this, that's a promise.
Yeah.
It's not a threat, it's a promise, is kind of the
So
vibe I
weird.
keep getting.
So we have a funeral and slave procession going on in this village, and Murtagh still stays.
Oh, good.
Murtagh then takes a walk, noticing that dragons in all the art are more like to thank her than dragons.
Okay.
But he doesn't dwell on that long, because this section ends as he decides he needs to protect the children in this
Okay.
place. It's for the
Well-
children, Jacqui.
Protect our kids, Well, that does take us to chapters 10 through 12. This last section starts with a hard pivot from death, mourning, and slavery when Murtagh and Thorn run into a toothless old coot sitting by a well. I was like, whoa, what a tone shift. I'm just going to read what this guy tells them because it seems of a piece, I think, with the weird prophetic stuff in this story.
Yeah.
He says, quote, "The crownless prince, afoot in a foreign land, son of sorrow, bastard of fate, sing of sorry treachery, red dragon, black dragon, white sun, black sun, dead sun eaten, earth eaten, the old blood avenged and the new enslaved, proud back, bent neck, choose, but can't wake from life. Oh no, serve the sire or sleep forever. What deathless lies may in eons rise."
Fun.
Rise so high in mud you lie,
Heck yeah.
Yeah, really creepy. Crownless prince got me because I was like, well, he used to have a crown, but whatever. I think I still, though, That makes perfect sense. Singing sad songs, obviously our coffee shop hipster. And the black sun / like sire lying deathless to rise after eons definitely feels consistent with the vision Murtagh just had of that giant dragon. What I'm a little lost on, though, is the white dragon and the white sun. What do you think that might mean?
I truly have
lost.
no idea.
I feel like usually at least we got something percolating in there, but
I got nothing.
Yes.
I do think proud back, bent neck. That's for sure Murtagh.
You think?
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking like dragons as a race.
Ooh.
Weirdly.
Okay.
But I could see like old blood, avenged, new and slayed. That could speak to a little bit of the revolution we just saw happen when Gal was deposed, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like there's layers. Well, Murtagh opts to get a little power nap in while the facilities and catering team get the night's event set up.
He's like, don't know what that is. I gotta sleep.
I was like, dude, you're gonna what now? I was glad that he actually couldn't get himself to sleep. Like the rest does not seem worth the price in this place.
No, not at all.
No, instead he does a little stump time and finds a couple of surprise consciousnesses below the temple. Like one big burning consciousness seems deep underground below the temple. One is at the top of the tower where all the birds are. That was kind of interesting to me. Yeah. And then he heads down to wait for dinner with Thorn. He does spare a thought during dinner for how the food is delicious enough to earn this evil cult a point in his good books. He's so funny, dude. But I guess now it's suddenly time to get some answers. So Murtagh demands that Bashel tell him what the fuck is going on in this place. And for a court-educated emo dandy, he sure knows how to kill the vibe at a party. We were just having a good time, Murtagh, and you really are making it weird.
Come on, dude.
Bashel is pissed at his tone, and it comes to a head when he reveals Serlith's clasp, and she demands an apology from him, causing an earthquake in the process. She absolutely chews the scenery here in the silence that follows the earthquake before she de-escalates things, and she bids Murtagh to forget their little spat and join her at the table again.
Even creepier.
Yes, dude. He's now feeling a distinct aura of magic around her in a way he didn't before. He didn't sense she was using magic up until this point. And although she hasn't used any grammary, any ancient language, he's not sure what to do with this. So he decides to hold tight to find out how that could be what she's doing here. God. The dragon, however, thinks they should get the fuck out immediately, and I humbly second that choice. But Murtagh points out that the sheer amount of earth Bashel just moved without a word belies a level of prowess that they cannot afford to leave as a mystery for now. They have to figure out how this is working.
Really, Murtagh?
He really thinks so, yes. He thinks she must have some sort of regenerative power source nearby to have accomplished such a feat. And much as I hate Bashel, if Murtagh could give it up, I think, for the cult's superior culinary artistry, I fear I also have to give it up for their commitment to renewable energy, Dane. No fossil fuels here. They got one good point in my books. I'm taking my cues from Murtagh.
That's hilarious.
Murtagh and Thorn realize that Bashel wants them here until they dream whatever is supposed to convert them. That's what she said about the slaves, is that they'd all have a dream so that they served willingly. So they decide they're not going to sleep till they can get away. Good choice. Mm-hmm. And in the first reasonable thought he's had in chapters, Murtagh decides that as soon as they leave, they're going to escalate this disaster right up the chain of command to Eragon. Yes. But the sanity is short-lived because Murtagh also decides that he just needs to do one last, teeny tiny, easy little recon mission to go in the cursed cave, Dane.
No.
The gasp I gasped when I read that, dude. He seems to think, and Thorn incomprehensibly here seems to agree that they'll just be able to see if the power source is down there real quick, and then they might even be able to use it if they want to, without waking Bashel. It's that is such a fucking stretch, dude. Are you stressed?
I'm so stressed. This book is stressing me out.
Same. Bashel, for the time being, she is again totally gorged herself and gets carried out on her litter from this feast.
I think there should be a rule of thumb on this show, Jax.
Yes.
If there's a character that uses a litter They're for sure bad, right? Like culturally it could be a thing, but 9 times out of 10, this is something a villain
Yes.
does, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm godlike, I'm better than you, carry me around.
A hard agree. Put this in the book of homebrewed tropes, like right under thin and or dirty innkeeper. It's like,
Yes.
that's bad. Hates dogs is bad. And
Yes.
gets carried on a litter. Bad, bad, bad. We do get some more tea from Elaine as she escorts Murtagh back to his room. The only other time that Bashel has caused an earthquake like this was when she met a woman named Uluthrek. And that's the name the Urgles call Angela. Remember, Uluthrek is their word for moon eater.
Oh yeah, Angela's here, and of course, by the way, Michelle walked her ass out of the village to meet Angela.
That is really on brand, Dane. But I don't think Murtagh has ever met Angela, actually, unless it was off screen, like between the Battle of Farthendur and his kidnapping, because she was in Trondheim.
We just have it the once at the end of Eragon after the Battle of Farthendur.
Yeah.
When he's recovering from the back scar.
You think they're in the same room?
They're in that same room.
Okay.
They're in that same scene.
Yes.
But they never talk.
Okay, so he's seen Angela, but there's no way he knows that this is her. This is like a wink to us.
I think the only reason Eragon knows is he was snooping on like the Urgles and Werecats hanging with Angela. He was like, that's weird.
Well,
And he walked over there.
Nargarshbra tells him that they call her Moon Eater.
Yes, it's that same thing. Yeah.
So either way, Murtagh gets some downtime to stare at his girl Niswata on a coin and work on an emo poem. So just a light night
I
before.
love that he spends all of this time doing this stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Instead of leaving this place.
Well, he's got to like get his mind right before his big his big escapade.
Let me compose a poem to the woman I love.
Yes. Well, this one is about how broken and bent people are still beautiful. And this might be like peak emo. I know I said it once before, but I think maybe I'm going up the ladder one more rung. I think this poem is peak emo, even more emo than the one where he whispered, "Forgive me," at the end. But when it's time to sneak out, there are 7 guards now with amulets on to get past in the courtyard, so it's time to try something clever. Since he can't affect them directly, he changes the air around their faces so they can't breathe or scream, and he cuts through them pretty quickly after all that. It's really, really brutal.
The quickness in which he decides to just kill these guys is wild.
I was actually really surprised. As they started choking, I was thinking through, like, how is he going to remove this charm so that they are only passed out? I thought he was trying to do non-lethal damage. And as soon as it became very clear that's not what was up, I was like, oh shit, we're just
moved right to murder.
Doing murder, yes. Honorable mention for Thorn, who tells them that they should leave immediately for probably the 7th or 8th time at this point. And Murtagh still insists that they check out the cave first. And it's like, why, Murtagh? Why?
Yeah. No, I will say at this point, I was irritated.
Yes. He's even thinking like, well, now that I've done all this murder, we are going to have to leave as soon as I do my quick little errand first. And it's like, no.
Oh, man, come on.
So Murtagh heads into the cave alone because Thorn's claustrophobia is flaring up very predictably. And they have a really poignant exchange, actually, where Murtagh says it's okay because they're both broken in different ways. Yeah. Like, this is his task to take on. And like, Thorn's like, I'll keep you safe from here. And Murtagh's like, I know you will. It's really sad.
Yeah.
And with that, Murtagh heads into the depths. Our guy Chris delivers big time on the creep factor during Murtagh's like interminable descent through this like ancient staircase tunnel. And a dim light signals he's made it down to some sort of like antechamber with a path that disappears into darkness ahead of him. Once again, in a horror movie cliche, Murtagh walks right into the darkness.
Yes.
On the far side of this room, there are 3 large tunnels. The one in the center is finished with like similar carvings and opals to what he's seen before. All of it also reminds him ominously of his adventures under Gilead with like door after door.
Yes.
Some of them like gem encrusted, like
that place was creepy as well.
Very creepy, and things did not actually go great for him down there.
Yeah, ask Weirden.
Yes. Oh, you're talking about the tunnels under
Dros Leona.
But yes, also, I think there is a big tie to that too. I actually think some people talk about there was like a smell of sulfur in the air when Angela did her fuckery in the tunnels down there, her time jump stuff. I think Christopher Paolini said that instance isn't related, but almost everywhere else that there was like sulfur, brimstone in the original inheritance cycle is probably related to dreamers. So
Weird.
little nugget.
Oh, come on, dude.
So Murtagh heads into this central, like, decorated tunnel. It's tiled along its length to resemble dragon scales, and this is feeling like some, like, fucked up magic school bus shit.
Yeah, it's like, come on, man.
Diving into the innards of a dragon. He arrives in a room that's, like, luxuriously clad in marble and gold, and, like, with this covered well at his center that's emanating vapor and what he thinks must be wild magic, which we haven't seen anybody, like, lay eyes on really in this way. And this whole place seems like the source of, like, the brimstone, the unnatural heat, the fungus that suffuses all of Nalgorgoth. And Murtagh thinks he can almost make out a shape in the vapor as he tries to mind probe down into the well, but he is immediately beset by distortions to his vision and urge to sleep. Bad, bad, bad sign, my dude. And what do you think that bad sign could presage, Dane? The appearance of Bashel and fucking Grieve.
Of course.
And as a fun bonus, Bashel is wielding the Doth Dart Nearnin. This shocked me. I was like,
me too. I was like, what?
Uh-oh. Just when I thought this could not be worse. Murtagh doesn't sense that Thorn is hurt in this moment. That's his first check, is like, oh shit, did they kill him at the entrance of this tunnel?
Yeah.
So he thinks they must have bypassed Thorn by taking a tunnel straight from the temple somehow. And they're all prowling around the well like cats circling each other. Grieve is declaring that any infidels who seek the well without Bashel's permission must die. But Bashel, I mean, she's a reasonable woman. She's got an easy solution to avoid all that murder.
Yeah.
Murtagh can just swear fealty to her. It'll be bing, bang, boom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Bob's her uncle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Weirdly, he refuses. He opts instead to ask all of his questions once again. Like, you think you're getting answers now, dude?
You're not getting any answers, dude.
And he's signaling Thorn for help at the same time, but realizing that his dragon is racked by his panic at the cave's entrance. Like, basically, Murtagh thinks help's not coming.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to deal with this on his own.
And yeah, that's why they should have left.
Yes.
Right? He doesn't have any backup.
Yes.
Thorn's not coming.
No.
Yeah.
Very, very bad. And actually, weirdly, he does end up getting some more answers here because Bashel can't help herself. She's got to go on a classic villain rant.
Yeah, it's a villain rant. Yeah.
So she claims that not just Serlith, but Gal and Morzan as well played their parts for the Dreamers, is what she calls it.
I call bullshit.
She says that the riders of old feared her and the cult, so they sent Gal in secret to root them out. That was the mission he was on when his first dragon was slain. He happened upon Nalgorgoth and his mad wanderings back to Illyria. So he didn't find him before the dragon died, but as he's wandering back, he does happen upon the village. And Bashel herself apparently nursed him like back to health while brainwashing him into overthrowing Vrail and the riders. This was all her idea, she says. It is wild, like huge, if true. I can see, like, I guess for me, I can see Gal being here, but like Bashel using him as a puppet, like that feels like too much. That feels crazy to me.
No, because they're still up here.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
She hasn't swept down to like assume power in the vacuum or anything.
And he was in charge for 100 years.
But it seems like she's really getting at, she wanted to do like the dragon genocide. That was her goal.
Here's the thing. I think it might have been one of those things where you give someone an idea and they're like, ooh, good idea. But then like it wasn't, but it wasn't before Bashel. You know what I mean? I think
Murtagh feels much the same way.
Yeah.
He's like, given everything we've seen here, I don't see like, you can't have wanted the genocide of dragons. You guys kind of worship dragons.
Right.
And in response, she calls the bonded dragons lesser worms with tainted blood, which has my mind like racing. I'm like, there's something weird fucking going on
there's
here.
something
There's
going
got to
on.
be some sort of like, I'm thinking like evolution, missing link. I'm really like, I went off the rails a little bit reading this.
Missing link.
I will get back to that later, I think. I think we'll have time for wild fan speculation. But I just need to know right now how Murtagh is going to get his dumb ass out of this pickle. Bashel continues her info dump, claiming that Durza also lived in Nalgorgoth, and it was the Dreamers that made him such a singular force among shades. Like, she says usually shades are just like kind of crazy and out here doing fuckery, but like Durza had ambition. Durza wanted things out of the world, and like it was the Dreamers who set him on that path. And this I do kind of believe because I hate Durza.
Well, I don't know. I don't.
No,
because we've learned that only 2 other people had killed Shades before Arya and Eragon.
Yes.
So she's not only claiming to like control the guy who took over the ancient order of the riders and genocide the dragons, but also to like have shaped the like direction of a shade who we know has only been like they're basically unkillable and all powerful.
I think that's just like that's just the function of a shade either way, is that they're powerful and unkillable. And I think generally they obviously are an evil in the world, but I think it makes sense. We certainly haven't heard a lot about shades in general, but we certainly haven't heard of a shade who like worked within the confines of an evil organization to like rise up. I think it's what she's talking about is like giving him like
purpose.
Yes, the ambition.
Yeah,
and
I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I know what
he
she
definitely
means.
seemed to have that though. Like he wasn't just out here doing random fuckery.
If we knew other stuff about other shades, maybe. Like I get it. I think she's lying. I think she's a liar. I think she's a little liar.
Well, that's what's weird is that Murtagh thinks repeatedly that like he detects no lies. Like
well, I think Murtagh's an unreliable narrator too. So
that would make sense.
Yeah.
She does say that apparently after Gal and Morzan hatched Shuriken, they all lived as one big happy family with Durza in this village, which are just like wild on wild on wild.
So weird.
Yes, Murtagh is shook, but he's steadfast in his knowledge. Like the thing that he does think, which makes a lot of sense to me, is that Gal could never have sworn fealty to anybody, just knowing what he knows about Gal, or have been a true believer here. Like he thinks the insane old genocider must have been planning some sort of double cross. Like he doubts not at all that Gal would work with Bashel or like let Bashel think she controlled him. But like all of this mostly just makes Murtagh realize that Bashel's power is not to be trifled with. It's just like too little too late.
Yeah, we're at the end here.
Yes, because either way, like she was able to hold her own against Gal when he allegedly came up here for blood. And this is just like going from bad to worse to DEFCON 1. Like he's so fucked. And Murtagh talks some shit as he finally squares up to fight. But Bashel is almost bored as she opens the lid of the well to release its like noxious vapors into the room.
Yeah.
And just like those poor guards that Murtagh tried to make fight with no air, he is forced to hold his breath as this 2-on-1 contest kicks off. He does hold his own mentally and physically for quite a while. Like Thorn is bolstering his strength, but a fall forces him to inhale the poison air. He like falls on his side and gasps, and some horrifying hallucinations finally overwhelm him.
Dude, the true enemy of any legendary like warrior is a little whoopsie-daisy. You know what I mean?
Just a little trip, just a little oopsies. Yes, so this episode's chapters end as Murtagh is again beset by the vision of the black sun and massive dragon, and Bashel commands him to sleep, and he does. And I'm like, fuck!
Come on, man.
So bad. So on that edge of the cliff, like pushing us over the cliffhanger wrap up, the only thing there is to do before we can find out what's going to happen to our horror movie main character is break down a couple of the things in the writing of this section.
It's time for analysis.
For this episode's analysis, I want to dig into something that is obviously a huge centerpiece of this section, and I actually find endlessly interesting as a topic in real life, which is cults. I think...
Yeah, you like them.
I do. I think your wife, and if the proliferation of content is any metric to judge by, like the rest of America is also on the same page.
Yeah.
But I will watch almost any cult documentary that comes out because I find it so fascinating to dig through like the stories of how people end up embroiled in these organizations that are so insular, so extreme. From the outside, so much of this seems obvious. That's like the vibe I think we are getting throughout this whole section. But when you're in it, like, I think that is some sort of like grim fascination for a lot of people to figure out how our brethren fall prey to things like this.
I don't know how you and my wife do it because they make me so sad. I can't.
It's definitely sad, but I think it's
them.
just this like morbid fascination thing. I mean, there's a going theory too that women also over-index on true crime because we're so obsessed with like how to not get murdered. So I don't
really think about it. Doesn't really cross my mind.
No, that makes a lot of sense. But I was really interested in why Christopher Paolini would choose a cult as a setting for this like main chunk, like the crux, the action storyline of this book. So I did a little digging and I turned up an interviewer who asked him about exactly this like take on religion he seems to have here.
Oh, okay.
He basically said that when he was younger, he had a family member who fell into what he insinuated was some sort of like Christian fundamentalist adjacent, like militia style doomsday cult up in Montana. Yeah.
Really?
Yes. He said that as over the top as some of the behaviors of the dreamers are in this section, he's like, I know it sounds goofy. This is like some stranger than fiction shit, but it's like very close to the real life experience he had growing up, knowing this family member was like sucked into a doomsday militia. Like wild, wild, wild. He says it was like the game Far Cry 5, and now I've not played that game.
I haven't played that game either. I've seen
from the research I did. That's where I'm gleaning this like doomsday militia style. The imagery of it looked very fundamentalist to me, but that could be a stretch that I made that's not real. Apologies to.
I love that's exactly the type of thing we do. Never played the game, but it feels like that.
It feels like that. But this did get me thinking about like how being mired in this cult connects to the story writ large. I felt a little bit like Julia Roberts' math equations, thinking about things like community, religious motifs, like 7 deadly sins, gluttony, rage, etc. But in a book where I think the main character is an emo boy like Murtagh, I had to take my cues from his emo predicament and think about this in terms of isolation and community. I think that's the heart of it here. A lot of the time that you see religion pop up in literature, it's a conduit for an author to talk about unity, about having a community around you. But with everything so fucked up in the religion that's here, I got to thinking the whole thing is kind of like a Black Mirror, like a negative after image for the things that are supposed to be the benefit of a community or a religion. Yeah. Which I think makes a lot of sense when you think about how out of alignment Murtagh is with his big picture problem and like these choices he's clearly making in a desperate bid to avoid what he actually needs to face in life, you know?
Totally.
His insistence on staying in this rat's nest of an unhealthy community reads almost comically by the end. We're just like, dude.
Yeah, by the end, it's like, come on, man. Obviously, you have to leave. Yeah.
And I think just how far afield Murtagh is from even knowing how badly he needs to let people in, ask for help, and stick things out to make a home is a big part of why we watch him like get sucked into this warped version of living the cult's experience, you know?
Exactly.
He comes as someone in desperate need of an in-group, and he cannot resist the pull to know more about the core mysteries and ultimately ends up at the mercy of the charismatic leader. That's like the cult plot line we see over and over, or at least I do. You don't. I don't. In these documentaries. Because at the end of the day, I think that's exactly what a cult is. It's a group that promises to relieve you of your isolation. That's the personality type that falls prey almost always to these organizations. And they promise to do that like and give you a community in exchange for essentially your very autonomy, your freedom. Like they're in charge of your life at that point. So I do not feel good here about a quick escape for Murtagh. Like no. I don't think that's what we're going to get. I think we're going to watch him suffer the like very real danger of a cult and get sucked even deeper into this. Do you think he's going deeper, Dane?
I think he is going deeper, but you know where we're going to go? It is a deep dive! Deep dive. For this week's deep dive, I just wanted to highlight that Angela was here.
Oh, that's true.
And it got me thinking about what we saw from her in the last book, The Fork, the Witch, and the Worm.
Yes.
And what we know about her post-inheritance.
Okay.
I haven't read Christopher Paolini's science fiction novel, so I'm missing some of the finer details on this, but I've been told she's in it, and that has been confirmed by Paolini. And then in the deluxe edition of Inheritance, there's a letter from Jode where he references Angela as in there.
Okay.
And that happens to be a character in the book, too, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars.
Yes.
Who happens to look and act strikingly like Angela.
Yes.
So,
what Jode says about her is like her character's name in the sci-fi book, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
So I have one question for you, Jess,
okay,
and the audience.
Okay.
What's her role in the story? Why does she keep coming up?
Yeah, like
I don't
in
get
this
it.
larger universe.
Yes. Yeah, with everything we know about her, it seems like she's playing a very different game in a plot we're not fully aware of.
Yes, for sure.
And her meeting with Michelle, like, who wouldn't even leave her courtyard for Murtagh, a dragon rider, speaks to a power and reputation even amongst the Dramar, the Dreamers.
Yeah.
That seems like a big deal. Another group of people who have interacted with her at some level. We know all the other races have, to some degree.
And all respect her power as something like not to be fucked around.
Right. So this deep dive is really more of a question.
Okay.
Are we ever going to know what's going on with her, you think? Or as I hinted at in Inheritance, is her mystery the whole point of her character?
Yeah. I think, okay, to metagame this a little bit.
Yeah.
I know Paolini said in a TikTok AMA doing press for Murtagh that she is super hard to write. That's something he said explicitly about Angela's character, which does make a lot of sense.
Yes.
But it's also clear to me, in reading interviews with him and just reading her character on the page, he really revels in her eccentricity. I think he likes her as a character. He likes the manic pixie dream girl of it all.
Yeah.
And that's fun for him to muse on. His answers about her often seem glib or just the weirdest thing he could make up, which really tracks. So there's a duality here I think does come across in her role in the story. I think I definitely like she seems so important in some ways, but so out of place in others, you know?
Totally.
I think he also talks about her breaking the fourth wall or being a character who knows she's in a story, which is interesting. But I think I expect her to continue to be a fun pop out everywhere we go. Every book is going to contain something like this. But I can understand how Christopher Paolini might not want to put himself through the ringer to give us a cohesive backstory that's really consistent with the mechanics and lore of this universe. That just would be hard, almost impossible to do because of how out of world, out of time she is.
Yeah,
you know?
I personally think she isn't going to get more than what we've seen here because it's the mystery that makes her very interesting to a lot of people. And I'm open to being wrong. I think the only thing for me that makes me question that is that she's coming up here too. Maybe this dreamer situation is something she has been working against for a long time.
Okay.
And as the next as the next series continues, she's going to be the main player in stopping whatever this is. I don't know, and I can't totally figure her out.
Yeah,
I know she's loved, but
I do think he's said in a couple of places that she is central to this plot line, but I think both of us are still a little have our reservations that he'll want to take on the behemoth task of writing her into this in a way that makes sense with the mechanics of the universe.
Well, yeah, also because I think he said similar things about the first book series too. I don't really think she's important really to that plot either. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. I don't think I've read him say that about the original
okay.
series.
I was did he say that? Yeah.
Well, that she's going to be central to solving this problem of the dreamers.
Yeah.
But
I guess we'll have to read and find out.
Yeah. So I just think that's a good guess, maybe.
Yeah, and people, I guess people love her, but I don't have time for love because it's time for hate. And what are the haters saying?
Actually, you should do your research, huh? Have you even read it? How you pronounce it?
What are the haters saying?
There's an index in the back, right?
This is a really derivative.
Hey there, haters. It's me, Dane. Your pal, your friend, your bro.
Whoa.
I know we've had our differences, but this week, I think we can find some common ground. We dive into this book's criticism right away, right here. And it's the one that faces the most.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can guess this week's hot topic.
I don't know how.
Yeah. Why did Murtagh just not get the hell out of here when he had the chance? And first, let's talk about what exactly bugs the haters.
Yeah.
The dislike seems to stem from the idea that Murtagh should have left pretty much as soon as he arrived.
Yeah.
It was clear from what we knew coming into this that the Dreamers were dangerous. Before actually even meeting Michelle, he knew she was a powerful witch who had made amulets that rendered her cultists immune to magic.
Yeah, I feel like when you know from the jump your opponent can easily overcome your most powerful weapon, that's a bad sign. You should start from a place of humility when treating with something like that.
Not Murtagh's strong suit.
No.
Once here, he learns she's a half-elf leading a multi-racial cult that spans all of Alagasia.
Uh-huh.
If he put that together with the details he learned from the werecuts, this could easily be deeply embedded into the political system, if not the entire empire.
Yes.
But almost every society on the continent with support from all their merchants and nobility. Then, yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
Not what you want.
Yeah. Then on his sneaky escapade the first night, Murtagh uncovers ties to the Forsworn and hints that Galbatorix must have been in a loop, given his long reign.
Yes.
And let's not forget the bizarre party that started and ended immediately at Michelle's command.
Yes, you did not like that.
It's strange, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if a noble threw a party like this. It would take time to set up. Not everyone would, arrive last minute. And the festivities wouldn't abruptly stop when the Lord left because no sane person would throw a party just for themselves.
Yeah.
That's weird, dog. Adding to the oddity, Michelle carried around on a litter.
Yeah.
Yikes.
We hate that.
Doesn't bother to greet the dragon rider herself, but sends a lackey, and shows no concern for her dead agents in the boar hunt.
Yes.
It's crystal clear she's not dangerous, but a cold, power-hungry maniac who doesn't flinch in the face of Murtagh and Thorn. These are major red flags for our dynamic duo.
Yep.
And that's day one.
Oh, fuck.
I could go on, but it would be redundant. The list is really long. You've got the Cultist Collective and obviously Magical Dreams, the continued dodging of any questions, the constant feeling Murtagh and Thorn have that they need to get out of here. And I think Thorn says it like 7 times in this section. These two dudes should have bailed a long time ago. The fact that they don't is something that the haters are upset about. And honestly, haters, I agree.
Wow.
It's a little irritating because it seems so obvious.
Drop the bomb.
Yeah, but not only should they have left during this section, but they've had a whole host of opportunities to confront this differently from the jump.
Yeah.
They could have brought in Nasawada and like some Min. Sent word to Arya for some elven support.
Yeah.
Reached out to Eragon in several different ways. Sent in their own spies or done any combination of those things or pivoted at any point during this to that.
Yeah.
Any of these would have been better than what they've been doing.
Yes.
And the multitude of off-ramps and alternatives to this plan really frustrates some of the haters. And I agree here. The moment it got too much for me was when on the boar hunt.
Yeah.
On the way back, as I mentioned, it was the perfect time to leave.
Yes, that seemed crazy to me.
He knew so much and got reminders both of how evil this lady was. He compared it to Gal and how strong she is as a potential enemy. That was the right time for an escape, and not taking it was really, really frustrating while I was reading. We know that Murtagh is vain and prideful at this point, and wanting to prove he can handle things on his own without Eragon's help is like a whole driving factor here.
Yes.
But this is so dangerous that logic is strained to its breaking point. It's not just Murtagh's own life he's gambling with. It's Thorn's.
Yes.
It's Nasawada's. And potentially the entire empire he claims to care so much about.
Yes.
So for me, it's a miss. But maybe we're wrong, haters. Let's dive into the defense of the hate, shall we?
Okay.
Now, what non-haters will say, and what I think even Paolini would say, is that this book is trying to turn Murtagh into a fully realized person.
Yes.
And that this choice to stay is consistent with the Murtagh we've seen in the first 2 parts of this book.
Yes.
He's been shown to be prideful and might actually believe he doesn't need help in dangerous situations.
Yeah.
He's also been shown to be vain and, justified or not, deeply resentful of Eragon.
Yes.
We've seen him think about his situation as a writer in contrast to his brother.
Yeah.
His resentment of Eragon's training opportunities, the adoration Eragon receives from the citizens of the Empire after the war,
Yes.
and the fact that Eragon was saved by their mother while he was not.
It's a tough look.
There was never any chance that Murtagh was going to admit he needed Eragon's help here.
I think so.
There's another element here. Murtagh wants to prove he can do this. He has a lot to prove here. In the very first section of this book, he has to hide from a dwarf because of their hatred for him after he murdered King Hrothgar. Multiple occasions in this book, from Esvar to commoners and taverns, people talk about Eragon killing Galbatorix and saving the day. Even at Ormus's gravesite, he is named on those tablets Murtagh the Betrayer.
Bad, yeah.
Murtagh constantly hears about how he's the bad guy and his brother is the good guy. It's not great. And Murtagh has every reason to be bitter and angry at this situation. First, he's a noble who is used to and enjoys the finer things in life.
Yes, he does.
Yes. High society, politics, dancing, intrigue, the arts. Instead, he's out on the road eating trail rations and sleeping outside.
It's a tough look for our dandy.
Yeah, and I can understand how this is a situation he'd want to change.
Yes.
Second, he didn't choose his birth.
No.
It's not his fault that Morzan is his father and Galbatorix was his benefactor. It isn't his fault he was kidnapped and forced to serve Galbatorix as a slave.
Yes.
Killing King Hrothgar was probably smart at the time, so he could come back to Galbatorix with something.
Yeah.
Especially since he didn't kidnap Eragon at the Burning Plains.
Yes.
Galbatorix took over Murtagh's body and used him, kind of like a robot, to kill Ormus and Glader. And finally, Murtagh was forced to torture Nasawada against his will. There's a lot of evil that he did and hate he gets because of circumstances outside of his control.
Yeah.
It must be so infuriating.
Yes.
You know? Murtagh desperately wants to prove he's a good guy, despite all these things. That
He's
he
just
has
a bro, you know?
Yeah, he's just a bro. He's confused. He's conflicted. That he had always tried to be on the right side, even when he was forced otherwise.
Yeah.
He wants to prove to the world, and likely, I think, to himself,
Absolutely.
that he is a hero and not a villain. So of course he would push this to the extreme. This place is full of great and ancient evil.
Yeah.
Something that even Galbatorix himself couldn't get rid of. Seems ripe of opportunity for Murtagh to set the record straight.
Yes, if you're going to take a big fucking swing,
Go
this
hard.
is the place to do it, I guess.
Yeah, and with the defenders strongly backing Murtagh as a well-written character, I've got to admit, a lot of that comes through.
Yes.
It's tough because while the haters have a point, and I was frustrated too,
Yeah.
Murtagh should have left. Maybe the truest and most consistent thing about our emo boy is that he has been and always will be his own worst enemy.
Yes, yeah.
He might be a master of the sword and a clever bastard with the best one-liners. But the one thing Eragon always had that Murtagh seems to lack is a bit of that good old bean farmer humility. You know what I mean?
I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
This man has never farmed a bean a day in his life, Dane.
He wouldn't know a rutabaga from a bean.
No, if it bit him in the ass.
Yeah.
I think that that's true. I mean, I too am I think the point of this section, it makes sense that the haters hate it.
Yeah.
I think the point is to be this frustrated, like watching him make bad choices. Do I see how, like we said, kind of our North Star with the haters, do I
Yes.
see how it can take you out of the narrative because you can so easily come up with alternatives for him?
Yeah.
Yes, I can see how that would be a problem for people. But I do think this is the point of the section, the point of the writing. I think it's a well-worn idea, like we've said several times, in
Yeah.
horror movies that builds the suspense of the setting. And I think it really is consistent with watching Murtagh make bad choices
Yes.
all through the end of the inheritance cycle, certainly.
Yeah.
And then through the beginning 2 parts of this book, he's just not picking the right options. And now I think we're going to see him really suffer the consequences. And if this book is, as we've said, a
Yeah.
character study, it makes sense that he needs to get himself in the shit in order to get himself out of it and grow as a character.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, and I think maybe the frustration that a lot of people have with all that being true is just that it seems like in the last series he did that. That like in the last series he did go through the shit to pull himself out of it.
Yes.
And make it through the end. And now we get his story and he's going through the shit
Yeah.
to pull himself out of it. And it's just like, man, it just seems like we learned nothing in the first war. We learned nothing in our first.
Yeah. I don't know that I would characterize it that badly. And maybe it's just because of exactly what I said in the final like analysis kind of
Yeah.
wrap ups when I was charting everybody's different character arcs. I said a couple different times and I was really tough on Murtagh.
Yeah.
Because I do think as much as he made the right choices and helped, like fairly, in fairness to him, he really did help bring down Galbatorix at the
Yeah.
end of the day. His final parting with Eragon was a tough choice for him still. Like he didn't
Yeah.
learn his lessons at the end of that book.
No,
and
totally.
he put himself in more pain. So I don't think his growth in that book, I do think this starts exactly with the guy we saw at the end of
Yeah.
Inheritance, you know?
No, I agree with that.
And
I just
so these are just the lingering lessons he still needs to like get through
Yeah.
his sideswept bangs, Dane. It's hard to penetrate him. He can't see. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, all I was saying is that I think getting in the minds of the haters, I think that's what they're
Yes, yeah.
irritated by.
That
But I
makes
agree with you.
sense.
Yeah.
Of course you do.
But we have no more.
It's a good point.
Oh my
No,
gosh.
I'm just kidding.
On that note, thank you for listening. Make sure to rate and review, especially on Apple Podcasts, support on Patreon, and check out our social media at Is This Just Fantasy Pod on TikTok or at Just Fantasy Pod on Instagram. If you have any questions or just want to write to us about the podcast, we love to hear from you, and I'm sure Jacqui would love to hear how right she is. You can email us at isthisjustfantasypod@gmail.com.
Yes, if you agree with Dane and the haters, please send him a kind email. But if
yeah,
instead
sure.
you just want to keep pace and read along with us, on our next episode, we will be covering Part 3, Chapter 13, Nightmare, through Part 3, Chapter 24, Grieve.
I think things are going to look up.
Yeah, I think things are coming up.
We're just 2 nerds and we love our fantasy. Come on and listen to us next time. Find out what our deep dive will be. Thanks for catching our show.